Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate and a special two-part interview with the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Yusuf Raza Gillani. Tomorrow I shall talk to the Prime Minister about the problems he faces in his country. But first tonight, Indo-Pakistan relations. Prime Minister, over the last 4 years under Pervez Musharraf and Manmohan Singh, the two countries believe they've had perhaps the best 4 years. How can you as the new civilian Prime Minister ensure that that momentum is continued and in fact relations improve?
I differ with you. I think that the relations with Indo-Pak relations were much better when there was a tenure of Benazir Bhutto and even Mia Mohammad Nawaz Sharif. We were coming very close to each other, and Benazir Bhutto, she also had, when Rajiv Gandhi came to Pakistan, I was a federal minister. In this same place, we had a meeting with him, and we signed few of the agreements. And when Nawaz Sharif was the Prime Minister, Vajpayee came to Pakistan. He went to the place of a resolution of Pakistan, and they sought out a lot of issues.
So you want to build on what Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif has laid down as foundations?
Certainly we want to.
But you're determined to take it further and make the relations better?
Yes, there are a few core issues which we want to resolve it. At the same time, we want to maintain excellent and extremely good relations with our neighbors.
Let's then start by talking about Kashmir. What will your government's approach to the Kashmir issue be?
With the aspirations of the people of Kashmir.
The reason I ask is that in April, your Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi told Dawn, we have been approaching this problem from a particular angle. Let's try a different approach. What is that different approach?
I think that can be maybe out of context. What our point of view is very, very clear. That is according to the resolutions of the United Nations and the aspirations of people of Kashmir.
So you are going back to the United Nations resolutions, even though General Musharraf and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh seem to indicate that they were prepared to move beyond them. You're going back to them.
We want to go beyond that, but at the same time, we have to resolve the core issue as well.
Let me try and explore your thinking a little. Do you agree with the parameters that Musharraf and Manmohan Singh laid down to try and sort out the Kashmir issue? Parameters which were that there should be no alteration of boundaries, the LOC cannot be a boundary, and boundaries must be made irrelevant.
These were half-baked things that they didn't have the mandate of the parliament, and now the new government has taken over. We have a government which we have got unanimously elected as a prime minister. We have the support of all the political forces in the country. Therefore, I think that needs to be debated. That should be rethink about it, and maybe the parliament thinks the same.
So you're saying that these are half-baked parameters? Yes. Even though I should point out to you that in India, many people felt that they were good markers towards a solution.
But people-to-people context, they want that. We should have good relations, and we also want the same. But at the same time, we have to have little thorough exercise on that.
General Musharraf, in fact, in his thinking went one step further. He spoke of the possibility of a solution along the principles of self-government and joint management. Although the Indian government never formally responded to that, the idea got a lot of praise from the press and from public opinion. Do you agree with that sort of thinking?
Actually, that was the president's idea, but this is not the idea of the newly elected government.
So in many ways, you're moving from President Musharraf's ideas, whether it's the three parameters, whether it's the concepts of self-governance and joint management.
It's not moving away. It is that we have to apply our mind on that. We have to take the other political forces into confidence, because this government is a broad-based government. It's a coalition of several parties, and we have to take everybody on board.
When you say you're not moving away, but at the same time you say you have to apply your mind, are you saying you want to examine these ideas and think about them? You may end up agreeing with them, you may end up disagreeing with them, but you first want to think for yourself about them. Is that your position?
But at the same time, I have mentioned earlier that we have to resolve the core issues.
And you identify the core issue as what?
Kashmir.
And on Kashmir, you're saying that the start has to be with UN resolutions. Is that what I understood you to say earlier on?
Yes, exactly, and with the aspirations of the people of Kashmir.
When you say the start has to be with the UN resolutions, many in India hearing you might feel disappointed. They might feel that an attempt had been made in the last 4 years to find a way around the UN resolutions. You're, in a sense, re-emphasizing the UN resolutions and perhaps turning the clock back.
This is not exactly what you think about it. It is that the people of Pakistan who are given the mandate to the new government, they want that, that there's a tremendous feeling that we want to resolve the Kashmir issue. Maybe the procedure, the modalities are different.
You also said that this approach to Kashmir has to be in accord with the aspirations of the Kashmiri people.
Exactly.
Are you in a sense giving them a veto over any decision that India and Pakistan may come to jointly?
That means that should be, they should be on board.
But not a veto. Consulted, but not a veto.
Exactly.
What you're saying sounds to me a little different from what Mr. Zardari said to me in March when I interviewed him for this program. Then he said that whilst Kashmir was important and it mustn't be forgotten, the two countries shouldn't let themselves be hostage to the UN resolutions. In a sense, your position is different.
It doesn't mean that he didn't want to resolve the Kashmir issue.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Except that he wasn't emphasizing the UN resolutions, you are.
We want to have good relations with India. We want to have even trade relations with India. We want to maintain excellent relations with India. We share a lot of commonalities, but at the same time, we have to even have the point of view of the Kashmiri people.
Let me then approach this a little differently. Many people in India and Pakistan say that whilst Kashmir is important and it mustn't be forgotten, nonetheless, it mustn't stop progress in other areas of the India-Pakistan relationship.
To that extent, I agree.
You agree?
To that extent, if it is not forgotten. And
absolutely. If Kashmir is not forgotten, you can still have progress in other areas.
But there will be a lot of hindrances.
But in other words, you're also saying Kashmir is not a stumbling block. It mustn't be forgotten, but it mustn't stop improvement in other areas.
To some extent it's true, but at the same time we have to have for stable relations, this issue has to be resolved.
Absolutely. Now, Asif Zardari in that interview that I mentioned said that the way forward was for the two countries to build trade relations, to increase interdependence, so that both had a vested interest in close relations with each other. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that.
In which case, how do you propose to boost trade relations?
In fact, for example, if we want to improve our trade relations, there can be a cultural relations, there can be trade relations, and in trade relations we have a lot of things which are common, which can be improved, like the cement industry. We can do that, and we can also have a lot of trade vis-a-vis food stuff is concerned.
What about energy?
We are already doing that, IPI, that is from Iran, Pakistan and India. We just had met the president of Iran.
As an indication of your serious intent to improve trade relations, would you be prepared to grant India most favored nation status? It's something that Pakistani governments haven't done. This might be an opportunity to do it.
But we want to have an even playing field for both the countries.
So you want something in return?
And, that should be equally treated.
Is there something in mind that you would like in return for MFN status?
We can think of, on those lines too.
And this is something that you will discuss with Foreign Minister Pranab Mukherjee when he comes at the end of this month?
Certainly, even we are expecting Manmohan Singh's visit to Pakistan.
When are you expecting it? Is the date fixed?
I don't know, but I've been told by the Foreign Office that he's coming.
Let me put it like this. In that interview that I keep referring to, Asif Zardari said that if trade can be boosted, confidence and trust between the two countries can be built up, and then an environment can be created which would make it easier to sort out the Kashmir issue. Would you accept that approach?
Yes, I totally accept that approach.
So the way forward is not to forget Kashmir, but to boost trade, improve confidence and improve trust, create an environment that will facilitate, and then in that environment, sort out Kashmir?
That would be a conducive environment. We'll have a confidence building, and we can come closer.
So on this issue of how you take the relationship forward via trade, create an environment and improve Kashmir, you and Asif Zardari are completely one.
Certainly, yes.
Let's take a break at that point, Prime Minister. I want to come back after the break and talk to you about India's concerns about terrorism and, of course, a little bit about Sarabjit Singh. We'll be back in a moment's time. See you after the break. Welcome back to a special interview with the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Yusuf Raza Gillani. Prime Minister, from the Indian perspective, the biggest irritant in India-Pakistan relations is the Indian belief that the terrorism that they experience is financed, planned and executed by groups like the Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed in Pakistan, with the connivance, if not the outright assistance of the ISI. How do you respond to that concern?
Now you're coming back to the same question which I repeated earlier, was the core issue of Kashmir. But I want to tell you that after the earthquake, that was 2005, there are a lot of people coming for aid in Kashmir, in our part of Kashmir, and even the United Nations. And the other journalists and the media, they all coming to Kashmir. They haven't find anything like this where you see that there was terrorism activities taking place.
So these concerns you believe are unfounded?
Yes.
Completely?
Completely.
The reason I bring it up is that in an interview to this program in September, Benazir Bhutto gave India 3 critical assurances. First, she said that if she became Prime Minister, her government would ensure that any militant or terrorist training camps in NWFP, or what you call Azad Kashmir, would be shut down. Do you stand by that?
Maybe she has that opinion at that time, but at the moment, I visited Kashmir, and at the same time, the whole world is there for the reconstruction of Kashmir. There is no such camps.
So there are no camps in NWFP, no camps in what you call Azad Kashmir?
Not in, you were talking about Kashmir.
No, I was talking about camps in NWFP and Azad Kashmir.
That you can ask me a separate question.
If there are militant training camps there, will you shut them down?
We are already working with the whole world for extremism and terrorism, and our point of view is extremely clear that we are against terrorism, we are against extremism. We have lost our own leader, Benazir Bhutto, because of that. How can I deny that? But at the same time, we are fighting against terrorism.
The second assurance that Benazir Bhutto gave me in September was that if the Indian government were to ask for access to people like Masood Azhar and Hafiz Muhammad Saeed, her government would seriously consider giving it. Today, your Prime Minister, she's not. Would you have the same approach?
If there are authentic proofs, and if they want to share with us, of course we can think on those lines.
So the onus of providing proofs is on the Indians?
Exactly.
The third assurance that Benazir Bhutto gave was that if India were to seek the extradition of Dawood Ibrahim, who even the Americans considered a terrorist, her government would not stand in the way. Will you stand by that commitment? Because
I have not studied that, I have to be briefed about that. At random, I can't say anything.
But you have an open mind?
Yes, I have open mind.
You have no preconceived desires to say no?
Of course.
If there is a good case, you would happily extradite Dawood Ibrahim?
If, again, the onus is on your side.
Let me tell you what many people hearing this interview might conclude. They'll say that Prime Minister Gillani is very reassuring. He clearly wants good relations with India. Maybe he's not so willing to concede as Benazir was that there is militant activity in militant training camps, but then Benazir was an opposition leader. In Kashmir. Benazir was an opposition leader, your Prime Minister, your responsibilities are different. But at the same time, many people will say he has a problem. He's under pressure from the Americans to take strong, stringent action on the western border with Afghanistan. That's going to create tension for him and unpopularity, and therefore he may have to compensate by reducing pressure on militants and terrorists and allow them greater access into Kashmir. Will you compensate one with the other?
Actually, we are very clear. We are fighting the war of terrorism not for America. That is, we are fighting war for our own country. Because as I have mentioned, that we have lost our own leader because of terrorism.
So you're firm on terrorism?
And I'm very firm on terrorism.
The reason I bring this up
and
is
we will not negotiate with militants.
You will not negotiate with militants?
Unless they throw the arms.
This includes militants who want to carry out jihad and violence in Kashmir on the Indian side of the border?
Anywhere.
Anywhere?
Anywhere.
The reason I ask is that Dawn News on April the 25th reported that several banned Kashmiri outfits had changed names and begun functioning again. The outfits they were referring to were Jaish, the Al-Badr, Hizbul Mujahideen, Harkatul Mujahideen. Will your government take action against these banned outfits now changing names and functioning again?
Whether the flower called by any other name smells equally good, because we are against terrorism and we are against them.
In other words,
we will not be supporting any terrorist.
In other words, Jaish and Al-Badr or the Lashkar-e-Toiba can change name as many times as they want, but you will continue to ban them.
We are for that. We are against terrorism.
So there is no change regardless of what Dawn News may be saying?
Yes, true.
The second issue that could be an irritant in Indo-Pakistan relations is the case of the Indian prisoner Sarabjit Singh. Your government has stayed his execution. The Indian government has approached you for a pardon. What's your response to the government?
I have advised to the president that it should be that he should stop his execution and it should be reviewed by the Ministry of Interior, Foreign Affairs, Law, Justice, and Human Rights.
And that is why the execution was deferred when it was a few days ago?
Yes.
And now the matter is being reviewed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Interior, and Law. And this review is with a view to a pardon?
They will think on those lines. They will consider whether the case is fit or whether the case is not fit, and they take the decision.
Personally, as an individual and as someone who has suffered time in jail, would you be in favor of a pardon?
That is the reason I have advised the president.
In the interview that Asif Zardari gave me in March, he said that if invited, the new Prime Minister of Pakistan would visit India, accompanied by Asif Zardari himself, Nawaz Sharif, Asfandiar Wali Khan, Fazlur Rahman, and even Altaf Hussain. That statement went down extremely well in India. Today, you are that new Prime Minister. Do you have plans for such a visit?
Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, he rang me up. When I was elected as the Prime Minister, and I'm grateful to him for his felicitations. He conveyed congratulations. And I also talked to the leader of the opposition. And we are expecting his visit to Pakistan. And whatever our co-chairperson, Asif Zardari, has said, I think it's a good idea.
But you're expecting Dr. Manmohan Singh in Pakistan first?
First.
Any visit you pay will be after that?
After that.
Let me end tonight's interview by saying this. If Dr. Manmohan Singh is listening to this interview, do you have a message for him?
I only wish him that we want to maintain excellent relations with our neighbors, and especially India.
And can he trust you on your assurance that you will do everything to stop terrorism?
I think there's no doubt about it.
And can he also believe that you're reaching out a hand of friendship to genuinely sort out Kashmir?
I think so, because I have the support of the majority of people in Pakistan.
So you want to be a true friend, not just of Manmohan Singh, but of India?
There are few problems which I have earlier mentioned, that if we resolve the core issues, I think there is no hesitation, and I am very clear about it. And we were coming closer. And I have quoted 2-3 past precedents also.
And you want to come closer still?
Yes.
Prime Minister, let's leave this interview there. Tomorrow I want to talk to you about the problems you face in your country. That's tomorrow night on CNBC TV 18 at 10:30 p.m. But for tonight, goodbye, good night.